When I found out about this topic, and actually other people found out, I had every so often people would come up and they're like, hey, good luck. But they'll say like, yikes. But the best one was, can't wait. Because a lot of people are excited about this topic. And I realized that the problem that we had was that we wrote wedding night and not like the wedding. I think that would have changed the context a little bit, because that's what I do want to focus on, but it does entail the other parts, and I'll get into it. But I realized like that little change would have brought my heart pressure down to 120 or 80. But I'm not that like lucky, I guess, because someone's got to do this job. The reason we're going through this series in our youth, it's not a given that your parents are going to walk you through this kind of thing. It's not a given. And it's a scary thing because there's so much power within this structure, this topic of sex, intimacy, marriage. And so we have to be really careful with it. I know that I have a tough job tonight. And so that's why I want to put into context why we're doing this again. And not just me being put through this, I can handle it. But like the speakers' wives have to go through this. We're putting them through this for you. And why that's so scary for them, why it sucks for them, is because they've entrusted their lives to us. Every insecurity, every flaw of theirs, they have entrusted to us. And now we have like this platform to talk about like the nuances of relationships. And it's scary because the husband of every relationship or marriage has so much power to traumatize and devastate their wife. And likewise, the wife has equal power. Women don't just want to feel physically safe with a man, they want to feel emotionally safe. And we will answer not only to their fathers, we will answer to God, who loves them as his own daughter. And I think that reality hasn't necessarily set in for a lot of us yet. You might not realize yet the responsibility that you will one day have when someone entrusts their life to you. How many of you saw the movie Oppenheimer? Okay, a few of you, wow. Alright, don't like history, I guess. It's this guy or these people that created this powerful thing, but they didn't know what to do with it. Now that it's out there, you can't take it back. And throughout the world, we're seeing devastating marriages. People broken, people carrying these weights on their shoulders because they have been hurt by this powerful thing that we don't realize its magnitude, its beauty, its nature, all these things. And so our goal here isn't to marry off more people. Our goal is to cultivate an environment through the teaching of God's word that enables healthy, lasting, and enjoyable relationships that honor God. You can't talk about it with your parents a lot of times. And so what happens is that you're tossed into these beautiful, colorful, rich waters, and in an instant it turns into, you're like in the ocean and there's a storm coming and you don't know what to do. Because once you're in a marriage, you are locked in according to God. There's no separation until death, with exceptions that we've already talked about in the past, but that's not the way we're supposed to look at it. And there are storms upon this sea that you've been put in that if you're not ready for it, they will eat you up. One personal fact that I'll share about you that I got permission to share was that Yuda and I enjoy watching Survivor together. How many of you know what Survivor is? Okay. Survivor, I'm just gonna talk about the B-roll. They'll show like these beautiful islands all around the world, these tropical paradises. And then a couple days in, people are getting situated and all this stuff, and then they'll cut to this scene and the music gets moody and dark. And then they cut to this scene where the entire camp is just struggling in rain and musty, like the worst, coldest, like most terrible, terrifying place, and they have nowhere to go. They're on an island, you know? And that's kind of like, I'm not saying marriage is like that, but if you don't know how to make a fire, if you don't know how to build a shelter, if you don't know how to wash the dishes, you're gonna struggle. A lot of people, if they aren't ready, will be hurt, frustrated, scared, feeling deserted, or completely destroyed. And so we're not here to stir up your excitement. We're here to warn you and prepare you. Schools might teach you anatomy, but they won't teach you about the spiritual intertwining that takes place. The news might cover like statistics and all kinds of things about relationships, but they won't tell you about God's design and boundaries in marriage. How to be satisfied, how to have a healthy and lasting relationship. Movies and magazines might romanticize and pique people's curiosities about relationships, but they won't talk about what grieves or honors God in those relationships. And what I want to emphasize here is that God is not against you in this matter. God loves marriage and He thoughtfully created it. Some people compartmentalize sex and intimacy far away from their walk with God. It's taboo, it's inappropriate, it's off limits, it's uncomfortable, and it's even a shameful topic a lot of times. But as we're reading through the Song of Solomon, I hope that you don't see it that way. That there's a way that sex can be honorable, that it can be beautiful, that marriage can mean more than just two people just being physically together. And Scripture teaches us that it's okay to talk about this because all Scripture is breathed out by God and is profitable for teaching, for correcting, for reproof, for building us up in a way that honors God. So that being said, the first tema session I call divine provision. If you're taking notes, divine provision. Collect myself. Before I talk about this text specifically, I hope that you know that there are certain parts of the world that read this together during feasts. It gets uncomfortable, but I've noticed that if you read it with the right approach and reverence, that's okay, because it's a celebration of God. You see the imagery of sacrificial love, His gifts and His blessings for us, including our ability to perceive beauty and feel wanted. Ladies, who doesn't want to be swept off their feet in the rain? Okay? By the right guy in the right circumstances, I mean. Some of you are like, I don't know. Gentlemen, when will you realize that a relationship with a woman is so much more fulfilling than putting all your time and money into a shiny metal hunk of junk, your car, that will never love you back? I imagine sometimes when I think of you guys like Dom and Brian riding off into the sunset with their cars. And that's not the life that you want, trust me. Right now, you need to be reading this book, getting the hint, seeing the seriousness of this topic, and downgrading your car, maybe. It depends. But reprioritizing is a big part of it, and framing our mind to read this in the right way. So, chapter 3, we're starting in verse 6. I don't know where you guys left off with Paul, but this is where my text is broken down. So, we left off of the woman here admiring her husband, or her groom, and emphasizing to the daughters of Jerusalem to not arouse or awaken love until it pleases. She wants to be with him. But she is patient during their separation before their wedding. There's anticipation building, but they recognize that there is blessing in waiting. Now I know that some of you aren't dating yet, and that's great. Enjoy your season of singleness, but there's a lot here for you to learn. For one thing, guys, I don't care how sarcastic or carefree or quirky a girl is, she wants a wedding. She wants to celebrate with you and the people you both care about. She wants the world to know about your love for one another. So you have to expect it. You can't be surprised when you get the bill for a wedding. Like, what am I going to do? Who do I call? Expect it. Don't be surprised. Start saving up, boy. Because this anticipation that builds starts building from even before the moment that you meet the girl that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And if you leave this huge waiting period before the wedding, that is dangerous. And so instead of first finding a girl and then figuring out all the details, you have to start preparing so that when the time comes that you find the right person, it'll be a short period where you just are ready, and this anticipation, this excitement doesn't linger and wait too long before that wedding. If you're not ready or won't be ready in a reasonable amount of time, don't even think about pursuing anybody. The Bible is clear: do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases, until it can take potentially its natural conclusion. And so there is this waiting, this lingering, and then in verse 6 we jump to the wedding. And so she's filled with excitement. And I'm going to read from verse 6. This is her speaking. What is that? I'm not going to read it. Coming up from the wilderness like columns of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, with all the fragrant powders of a merchant. Behold, it is the litter of Solomon. So we stop there. This is significant imagery, especially to the Jews who were led through the wilderness by the Holy Spirit, the same Holy Spirit that split the sea, that provided them all of their needs. And it would take on the form of this pillar of smoke and fire going before them and pausing when they needed rest. It was God providing for his people, leading them, guiding them, giving them what they needed. And in those times, it was customary for armies to march through foreign lands by illuminating torches, burning things, spreading out to create this intimidating picture of strength and unity. Whereas God's people had an entire column that spread to the skies of smoke and fire, leading them through some of the most difficult circumstances for 40 years in the wilderness. So like human armies, we can picture like in the night, just this burning, right? This sound. It's epic, it's intimidating. But the Jews had the Holy Spirit. So it's even more impressive. And that's what she's comparing this moment to. Or maybe his thing was on fire, the thing carrying him. I don't know. She's imagining and making a callback to when, in Numbers 24, Balaam set his face toward the wilderness and witnessed Israel's camps tribe by tribe. Then the Spirit came and spoke through him, and he proclaimed the blessings that awaited this nation. And that when they were nearing the end of their impossible journey, that they would rightfully enter into the promised land. And Balaam stood there admiring them, awaiting them. And that's what this bride is doing. He is nearing the promised land, metaphorically speaking. And she's thinking about the blessing. That everything that the struggles and the preparation and the money spent and whatever else, everything is culminating in this moment where he will finally see and taste the reward of all this trouble of waiting and keeping purity and all these other things that we'll talk about. But so not only is this an epic sight, but this woman is describing him in this way, like, holy, she's into him. And it's not just this epic sight, but it's a holy sight. It's a reminder of God's provision over marriage and weddings, and sex eventually, right? She is seeing this as not just another day, right? There is this powerful switch that clicks on, right? Not only is her sight, like, wow, look at him, but other senses as well, they're overloaded because there's a fragrance. Powders from merchants, meaning hard to come by, probably expensive, but he wasn't doing pre-wedding retail therapy. He wasn't just buying random things. He has done this for a reason. It's a statement to everyone and to her. Have you ever smelled something so good that you just stopped and like looked? Where's that coming from? I often drive by Texas Roadhouse just to smell what they're cooking. And the smell is a precursor to something even better coming. It builds our anticipation, and I love that God did that. When we eat food, we can smell it. We're excited to taste it. Our taste buds are sizzling, right? Furthermore, I find it interesting that the two resins, or the oils that are mentioned, frankincense and myrrh, the same ones that were brought by the wise men to Jesus along with gold, Solomon happened to be a wise man as well. And it's interesting that he's bringing these two things with him. What does it mean? I don't know. But there is some kind of imagery here, even though they didn't know Jesus or what the wise men would bring, there's something connected here. And do you see what she's doing? She's admiring him. In our culture, the wedding is all about the bride. And don't get me wrong, that's great, like, good for you. And that's not a bad thing, but to the Christian, there's this deep and beautiful illustration of how God has made a covenant with Israel. And Jesus, the bridegroom, has made a covenant with the church, his bride. And he's eagerly coming back for her. I wish that when we did the walk down the aisle, for some reason, like, the girl would stand there, and the bridegroom would come to get her. Now, we don't have to do that, but that's technically more of the right kind of imagery. And it's this image that's a sweet precursor to the ultimate wedding feast that will take place on the new heaven and the new earth. And so when she sees the litter of Solomon, they carried him in this palanquin, or whatever it's called, and he's surrounded by all these men, his posse, I don't know what to call it, his groomsmen, right? And she is seeing and smelling this sweet aroma of Christ coming for his bridegroom. And though she doesn't know Christ, but she sees through the imagery of Israel of how God, for one thing, provides and guides, right? But also, it's this intimidating force, right? This, the Holy Spirit is the one that led Israel through difficult situations, and she sees this holy man coming who's going to lead her through the rest of her life as well. And so there is holiness in marriage. It's not something we just do without considering God's place. And even think about vows. They are not just two people agreeing to some terms, but they should be something that reflect the text that we see in Romans 8, where it said in 38, "For I am sure that neither death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord." Because the church has been wed to Christ, and he's not going to let anything separate us from him. And so when you are getting married, it's this imagery again. And that's just so beautiful, so meaningful, that there's this divine provision from God over every marriage. It is a holy ceremony that reflects the relationship we have with God. And so, the next section, diligent protection. "Behold, it is the litter of Solomon. Around it are 60 mighty men, some of the mighty men of Israel. All of them wearing swords and expert in war, each with a sword at his thigh against terror by night." Now, I want you to consider for your wedding, getting swords for your groomsmen. Heavy ones that clink. I want them to walk in a synchronized way and lift the limo and carry your king to you. That's what I want. I want them to have torches and smoke beer. No, okay, it's a little extreme. This is a little out there. But imagine how secure the bride feels on the happiest day of her life. She is untouchable. Her groom has made provisions to protect her and get her where they needed to go. And there's a good chance that there's a reference to King David's mighty men, who there were around like 37 of them or something like that. They were known as the 30. But Solomon, I don't know if God was double it and give it to the next person from David. He just gave it to Solomon, but doubled it for your wedding. We're gonna have this crazy protection for your bride. I don't know why it's like that, but I know how she's feeling. Nothing can scare her right now. And you might be wondering the terror by night, what's she talking about? It's referring to late night snack attacks. No, I'm kidding. Why do you do that? It takes 60 men to get her from the pantry. No, these men aren't there just to protect her in the easy daylight. They're here to guard the difficult ship. They're here for as long as they are needed. They are battle ready, prepared to die for these two. So guys, if you plan to marry a woman, get some strong, buff dudes. Happen for you, you will need to prove that you are able to protect her and care for her. I know that's not politically correct in our culture today, but when I got married to Yuda, I didn't understand this thing she did, where she would go to our front door, lock the screen door, lock the door, turn the latch. She would go to the garage, make sure it's closed. She would latch that door too. And then from the mudroom, she would close that door. Sometimes even like our upstairs room, like she would lock that too. And it drove me nuts. It felt like going through a pilot going through pre-flight checklist. Like every door, every window has to be like closed and shut. And I realized later that I've never experienced what it is for a woman to live in this world. I can't empathize. I can't imagine what it's like. And maybe none of us ever will, but I hope that it's instilled in our hearts that we would be ready to die in the attempt to protect them. Because that will be your duty as a husband. If it takes hiring 60 bodyguards or whatever it takes, she needs to feel safe by her husband. And not only safe, but he's providing. Like he can get all these men for her. And how can she give herself to a man that isn't going to care for her safety? So what does this mean for the single people right now? Because you're not thinking of like, man, I gotta hire 60 people, that's whatever. But be protective around the women that are in your lives. What comes to mind for me is, you watch The Office, right? Dwight and Andy are fighting, and Dwight yells something to Andy. He's like, "Why would she be with you? You can't even protect her." And Andy's like, "Protect her from what? Bears, you idiot?" When's the last time you saw a bear? It's not that kind of protection, right? Maybe it will come to that. Maybe you'll fight an intruder someday. But there's this emotional protection. You might not be fighting conquerors or catastrophic events, but there was a time after volleyball, it was super late in this very big park, and there were like 10 girls cleaning up, and all the guys were gone at a restaurant. They finished and they left. And Yulia and I packed our things and we looked around and we felt so embarrassed. Because these 10 girls in like pitch dark with mosquitoes are like cleaning and they have to get all the way to their cars. Not one person stayed and was like, "Hey, I know it's gonna be weird and our friends might talk about it, but can I walk you to your car?" And thankfully girls have a system in place. And they walk together, they whatever, it's good, but I don't see this. I don't see it. And I wish it was the case. Not just physical protection, but like I said, emotional. We are built different. We bruise a little bit different. And you don't get to play around with the woman's feelings. You don't get to call her names for attention. You don't get to gossip about them. It is not just the physical protection, but they want to feel secure. They want to entrust their lives to you, and they're going to spill secrets to you. They're going to talk about the things that hurt them, and so they need to be able to trust you. And if you're not practicing that now, you're not going to practice it in your marriage. So that takes wisdom and common sense, right? How he treats his mom, ladies, observe. There are signs. How he treats the grocery checkout person, whatever. All right, let's try to speed this up. The next one, generous planning. King Solomon made himself a carriage. What a good guy. From the wood of Lebanon. He made its posts of silver, its back of gold, its cedar purple. Its interior was inlaid with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. Go out, O daughters of Zion, and look upon King Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of the gladness of his heart. So you found an attractive man. You enjoy being around him. You feel safe. His vertical jump is impressive, and you could see yourself having athletic volley babies. But here's my question. Is he helpful? This man that she's describing has built himself a carriage from the wood of Lebanon. Like, it's giving desperate. No, it's kidding. Look how thoughtful he is. Look how skilled he is. He spared no expense. He is skilled and altogether crafty. He knows his way around the jewelry store, let's put it that way. This doesn't mean that you need to find somebody with money. This is about his thoughtfulness, his generosity, his ability to get things done for the one he cares about. He's a little flashy, but don't let that take away from this romantic gesture. And a side note here, when you see guys putting themselves out there and being romantic, like the guys that wrote out like so many letters to you girls and sent them with flowers and all that stuff. Can I say the names or? I couldn't commemorate them enough. I couldn't be more proud. But imagine they were delivering it and the girl met them and she's like, you know, get out. We also bruise easily. We can easily be deflated. And so when a guy is being thoughtful or romantic, don't immediately laugh or cringe or whatever else. Let him try it, let him do stuff. I don't know how much more I need to say on that. I think it's pretty clear, but it's okay to be a little flashy, but I also want us to be understanding like the amount of money a guy spends on your wedding day does not equate how much he'll love you. And I think the average for weddings is like 20-something thousand right now. You don't need that. You don't need to be this flashy. This is a Bible story that gives us this imagery of Christ's royal wedding, right? There's this extravagance to this, royal splendor. It's not meant to be the everyday. This isn't how they did every wedding, okay? But there should be some care in his steps with your planning and him working an extra job if that's what it takes, him doing something. And so she's excited because he's doing all these things and she's so proud of him. Guys, you don't need to know everything about everything, but at least know how to do trim moldings, how to paint, how to change the tire. There's a lot you should know, but if you don't, at least just be generous with your time, right? Don't come home and like, I'm tired and there's nothing else I want to do but, rest and indulge. If you're generous, you put in the time to learn things, try things, that's all that's really being asked here. I don't expect you to build a carriage from the trees of Lebanon, but be prepared to be generous with your time and your money to show that you care for her and that you will do what it takes to provide for her. Have that willingness to do things and to learn. And then look what happens when that is the case. Go out, O daughters of Zion, and look upon King Solomon. She is so proud. The girl went off. She said, look at my man. He's amazing. And ladies, I think that that's worth waiting for. That is worth looking for. And instead of the word up on, I like to imagine that it's like daughters of Jerusalem or daughters of Zion, just look up, my man. Okay, so we went to Chicago with my class and other classes, and I was shocked at how quickly they found every single guy's Instagram page. They knew their status, they knew their dogs' names, they knew if they were good with children, and none of them even talked to them. They found this out without even like anything, and I was disturbed. And it spread like wildfire. All the girls knew everything. And that's how I kind of see this, is like, look him up, like he's great. She's so excited in your relationship when he's doing something that you would exalt the good things. And for one another, the guys do this too. No matter how frequently those things are a part of your busy cycle, your routine. And guys, be thorough, because girls will notice. Take care of things, take care of people, be generous, go out of your way. Ben Stewart, when he was going through this text, when he realized he found the girl that he loved, he was like, I'm ready to marry her. First thing that entered his mind was like, do I have any money? And then he's like, here's what I'll do about money. And he proceeded to budget his costs for schooling, the wedding, housing. He found extra jobs to do, drove across state lines, talked to the dad, drove across state lines again, talked to the mom. And when he got down on his knee to propose to her, she felt so secure because he took care of all of those details. He didn't rush anything. He showed his dad, or his future dad-in-law, he showed him his bank statements. Desperate he was. But he's like, here's what I have, and here's how I'm going to take care of your daughter. And I will love her until I die. And do you think that dad had objections? No. He said, get her out of here. After everything, there was no guilt, no like fear in her, no rush, no worries. Everybody else was on board. He knew her character. He asked everyone he knew. That's the kind of moment you want to have, not filled with doubt and procrastination, frustrations, and like feeling alone. But you want a guy who's a go-getter, right? All right. Generous planning. Now let's skip chapter 4 altogether. Go straight to chapter 5. I'm just kidding. I think this is the true habanero book of the Bible, and we will not be skipping it. Do I have any volunteers to read it? Some of you know, I'm going to call this section gentle adoration. This is past the ceremony. This is when they are in their bridal chambers alone. The woman spoke of Solomon at the wedding. She was excited about all those details. But now Solomon speaks about the bridal chamber. And watch what he does. He compliments her, makes her feel wanted, highlights her qualities. And this is where intimacy begins. Good intimacy. And this is where great sex flourishes. It's not meant to be casual the way our culture has accepted and normalized. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have come up from the washing, all of which bear twins, and not one among them has lost its young. Your lips are like a scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. All of it shields of warriors. So, let's break it down. Notice how he starts with the window of her soul. He says, you are beautiful. Wow, you are beautiful. Your eyes are like doves. Not pigeons, boys. Not penguins. Like, I think Solomon's onto something, but you can't use just any bird here. Her eyes are soft, gentle, inviting. There's an innocence to them. And then he moves on, your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. It's this gorgeous setting, a place highly prized for its rich growth, perfect for grazing, for cows and sheep and goats, and it's very peaceful. And when you witness something like that, it's mesmerizing. They're just flowing. And what's happening here is that she has let down her hair, something that in that time and culture was a very sensual act, because the hair of a woman was her glory. It wasn't just shown to anybody. Her beauty wasn't flaunted around. It was reserved for her husband. And this moment was unique and special. Obviously, do what you need to with your hair, and especially with your health. But just know that your husband will find beauty in you, even where you might not have paid attention. Things that you might take for granted, like this man is noticing her teeth. Like, who thinks about people's teeth? But this is something for us guys to learn, to notice everything. But there's a caveat here where she has had modesty up to this point. Because a man needs to know that the one that he loves and would die for has allegiance to him when it comes to her body. What I mean by that is that it's nobody's business what you look like, how Ben Stewart said, the contours of your body. I don't need to know that stuff. It is something reserved for your husband. And it might not be your hair, or it might not be whatever other feature we're talking about here, but when I was young, if a girl dressed provocatively or acted provocatively, I may have noticed her, but it was an immediate deal breaker for me. Because if she was like that with everyone, if I were to marry this person, how would I know that she's going to be exclusively with me? That her body is not to be displayed everywhere for everyone to see. And girls, take some encouragement that maybe those girls will be noticed right away. But if it's a good guy that will treat you this way as Solomon treats his wife, then focus on that part. I had to train my mind throughout, honestly, when I mentor people, I tell them this, like, train your mind to respond to infatuation. Because throughout your lives, you will come across all kinds of attractive people. But I need you to have self-control and understand that it's all that is. It's infatuation. It's flesh. It's not yours to look at. And what you really need is someone who will have affection with you and be exclusive with you, and you will feel loved mutually with them. Because you might be instantly attracted to someone, but that doesn't mean anything. You can't start your life with them, or you will never find what God is trying to fill in your heart through them. And so my advice is, don't look at people and don't show people. Nobody needs to know what you look like, not even your friends. Comparison is the thief of joy. And if you can avoid that, and reserve yourself for this moment, it will be rewarding. It's kind of controversial, like, ladies, don't even let each other see each other. You don't need that. You don't need to look at Instagram every day to see what the most attractive people look like, or their most flattering faces, right? Do what you can to preserve, even from your own sight, these other things, because when you are with your husband, he's going to love you and appreciate you. Every flaw, everything, he's going he's going to see it, and he's going to count it as beautiful. This woman was not perfect. Remember how she described herself earlier? And yet, Solomon here is like, there's no flaw in you. You're altogether beautiful. And so, I ask that you consider this, both the guys and the girls. About her teeth, it just means they're freshly washed. like do it. I don't think they were white, but I'm sure they were somewhat whitish. Don't worry about that. And what he says here, of all of which bear twins, and not one among them has lost its young. That means she has all of them. They're present. They're accounted for. And reading this, I was like, who knew that even in the old days, like, there were unrealistic beauty standards. Like, they didn't have brushes back then. I don't know how she did it. But I wouldn't worry about this part so much because, teeth have a life of their own sometimes. And I think he was exaggerating here a little bit. But notice how he just notices everything and he compliments everything. He doesn't criticize, like, that tooth is AWOL. No, he admires every part of her, and he is working his way down. Her eyes, her hair, her teeth, her lips, and her cheeks. He says, your lips are like a scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. So if you are healthy, it will show. And I think that's the focus here. That's his thought here. They're not pale lips. She doesn't look faint with sunken cheeks. She is lively, and even when she speaks, it is lovely, right? Your mouth is lovely. And he's just describing her like she doesn't look like she's like going through something rough. She is prepared, she is ready, she's brushed her teeth, she's let down her hair at this point, and he's just telling her these sweet little things. Now, one thing I did want to mention, ladies, please be careful with your usage of makeup. For one thing, you don't want your husband to be surprised one day. When he sees you naturally. God has naturally colored your lips and your cheeks and your eyebrows and your hair. Getting a man should not require a complete reconfiguration of all of your features. For another thing, I bet it's exhausting. Focus on the upkeep of your health more than these altercations. Because one day, your beauty will fade. And if you found a guy that only cared about those beautiful features, what do you think will happen? And so, don't focus so much on that. Find a guy that in sickness and in health, a guy that even if he sees some imperfection, he's going to be like, man, your cheeks look like pomegranates. Like this woman was like a worker. Like she wasn't like some beauty star living in a caravan her whole life. She worked the fields. Like it couldn't have been that perfect. But he's like scarlet red lips, all this stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, gentlemen, when you did that survey about what you see or what you want to see in the woman you marry, a lot of you said that she can't be a Kardashian. And my question is, why then do you only talk to the Kardashians? Not that there are Kardashians necessarily, but there's a clear division in our youth where some people get a little more attention. And maybe that's fine for a time, but I want us to notice the other people. And I know that sounds hurtful, but if you guys say that you don't want this kind of person that's flaunting the beauty and all this stuff, I don't see that happening here. I shouldn't say it. There's more, but I'm gonna just skip ahead. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. What can I say? She had an impressive neck. But really, she's not drooping her head. It is straight and strong, built with a purpose. David was commemorated for many things. And in some cultures, it would be common for warriors to hang their shields as monuments of their victories or their loyalty to a kingdom or whoever. And I think this might have been encouragement to Solomon that she has overcome much in her life and is able to hold her head up high. Her neck is elegant and she's honored and guarded her head with her body. And David was known for his unwavering trust in God, regardless of the circumstances that he faced. That's all I'll say for that. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies. Until the day breeds and the shadows flee, I will go away to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of frankincense. Now remember, this topic is gentle adoration. When you see a baby doe, a fawn, a gazelle, you don't run up and go, "What's up?" You approach carefully, gently. And I wish I didn't have to say that, but I will say it. You never, I should say, approach a mountain of myrrh or a hill of frankincense that is private property. Does that make sense? Guys, mountain of myrrh, hill of frankincense, imagery that is, and I'm saying here that our guys and men around the world need to learn to keep distance from women. You don't just approach, you don't just hug their shoulder, you don't do anything, you don't scare off a gazelle. And especially in this moment, even though you're in private, Solomon doesn't just jump in there. And there's this imagery of her gentleness or her innocence, right? And so I just want us to be careful. And that's all I'll say. And he says here, until morning cometh, and this is where I'm going to be. Like, he is here for it. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with ancient traditions of weddings, but here's how it went. The wedding celebration would last a few days. The guests have not left during this time. They are outside. And this was the bridal chamber where newlyweds were given as much time as they needed until they were ready to return to the celebration. You tracking with me? How awkward is that? Your family's out there. Some places still practice versions of this. But I want you to know that there would be 7 days of celebration. And so there's this emphasis where don't rush any of it. You don't want to traumatize your newlywed, your wife, because of eagerness or you being too zealous, overzealous. You have the rest of your lives to figure it out. Okay? She has heard horror stories of this time again and again. So I beg you to learn from the approach that Solomon takes. He talks to her. He affirms her. He honors her. He's gentle with her. He waits for her. Bring snacks and drinks. Set up some rope lights. Set the mood. Take a nap if you need to. There is no rush. Sex is meant to be gentle and not like we see in pornography. We have been scarred, okay, by this culture, by our times. Instead, talk about your favorite moments from the wedding. Sex and how women see sex. And she's not at the same mindset, the same place as you are. And you will have different boundaries that I hope that you will discuss either in your engagement or during this night or whatever else it takes. But you need to understand, especially the guys, that people have different sex drives and that you will need to find a balance that is both safe and enjoyable for both. It's not just this like, so we're married, like cool, like let's do it. Guys are task oriented and we're just dumb sometimes, right? Empathize, get into like her mind. He's seeing all her beauty. He's looked into her soul, right? He's looked into her eyes and sees this is a daughter of God, right? And so this is a warning, but it's also encouragement to some of you, okay? And it's promised here that it's worth waiting. You don't want to traumatize this person. All right. There is a passage that talks about not depriving one another. For the husband doesn't have authority over his own body, and the wife likewise, and they should not deny from the other their conjugal rights, their marital right, right? I think this passage is really misunderstood. It's not suggesting that either of these people can just do whatever they want. That's harmful, that's dishonoring, and that's not the point of that passage. Paul was saying that men and women both have needs, and we should do everything in our power to meet the needs of our spouses. And that includes the emotional aspect of intimacy, both the woman and the man. Meaning sex isn't just about a physical act or simply the means of making babies. Sex is meant to mutually satisfy our natural desires for affection, right? Again, both men and women need this. So men, single, work on winning someone's affection. Practice sacrificial love. If you want to marry a beautiful woman, like the kind you dream about, it doesn't take a magical pickup line or impressing her with your driving skills or with jokes or whatever else. What it takes is this, her seeing sacrificial love from you. That's how she can know that you're ready, that she can entrust herself to you. So put in the work on your character, have a plan, hold a job, be polite, be thoughtful, don't stalk her profile, or terrorize her house with flowers, as some of you do. There was only one time where it was allowed. Be the kind of man that she would gladly entrust her life to, and she will reward your efforts, not just with her body, but with her soul. She will follow you and help you and build you up as you pursue Christ together. And keep in mind that anytime you'll have a marital issue in your life, that it will follow you to the bedroom. God almost requires us to work through our issues to restore intimacy. And nothing will be right again until we've fixed it. And the same thing can be said about our relationship with God. When we do something wrong, we feel guilt, we run away, we hide, we get frustrated and bitter. And so to restore that intimacy with God, what do? We humble ourselves, we approach it with tenderness, we love unconditionally, right? We can't walk in darkness and enjoy the light at the same time. So for you to experience the treasures of the promised land, enjoyable sex, it means that you have to be good at practicing this conflict resolution, caring, right? She needs to see that you're there with her, that you're one flesh, that there's this union, right? And so mutual satisfaction is what I want us to focus on. And notice through all these topics, actually, guys, like divine provision, he is a holy man, he is led by the Spirit. Diligent protection, he makes you feel safe and taken care of. Generous planning, he doesn't just think about himself, he cares about the details. Like all of these topics, even if you're single and you don't have anyone on the horizon, these are all applicable. Are you a holy man? Are you led by the Spirit? All of these things, consider them. All right, I gotta wrap this up. He says, "You're altogether beautiful. There's no flaw in you." Every girl, no matter how attractive they are, will sometimes feel insecure. And it is your job to uplift them, to encourage them. And so this is what we're learning in this text. And then he says, "You're altogether beautiful, my love. There's no flaw in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon." Ladies, you're going to have to leave your friends. There's going to be this time where you're really going to struggle with this, potentially. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's what this passage is referring to. Some say that he's asking her, like, she's with him, but he's like, "You're too far away. You're like the mountains, right? Like come, like let's be together. It's safe. It's okay." But I think I also want us to understand that you're going to be alone with this person, so make sure you like them. Make sure they're a good person. The best way to guard your heart, I don't know, I wish I had a demonstration, but imagine a city surrounded by gates and towers and a wall. The gates are open, and if you let anybody through, it's hard to get through or get rid of them. At the gates is where you stop that. You see exactly who's coming in, what their purpose is, all these things. And so guard your city day and night, because that is your only chance. Once you let somebody in, once you take that step in marriage, or once you even like interact in any physical, intimate moment, something is taken. And when you are actually getting married to the person you love, you might feel lost if you have not been careful, or if you've let the wrong person in. And so right now, I would say to you, I've said this before, it'd be better for you to be alone than to be married with someone that makes you miserable. I'm going to read this. "You have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride." This was an endearing term. This is not his sister. "You have captivated my heart." It's almost like they're under God, they're siblings, right? "You have captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. How beautiful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much better is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your oils than any spice. Your lips drip nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon." Pretty obvious what that is. But I wanted to say, your lips drip nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. Honey and milk was the promised land, right? It was this symbol that it was lush and it was abundant. And he's ready to enjoy the sweetness of what is about to take place. And this is where he begins his journey a little bit. And what I kind of wanted to say here was the kissing thing. A lot of people ask, is it okay to kiss before marriage? And I wanted to kind of bring this up before I talked about it. This is powerful stuff. If you awaken this before its rightful time, you are playing such a dangerous game. I will tell you who is able to handle this kind of thing. Nobody. Not one guy in here can control himself. This kissing and getting this close There are no safeguards once you start this process. If you cannot take it to its logical conclusion, you have no business participating in it. This is so sensual, so intimate, and it's made to be a precursor to what's about to take place. So you can't just give it and take it away. You can't play this game. And so this is a warning. I mean, if you have kids, if you've done something like that, that doesn't mean that, oh, next time I'll be okay. Like, I've seen this happen. I've mentored people who have really struggled with this, and they couldn't take it back, and they were waiting for their actual wedding, and they're like, I don't know what to do. This isn't what I wanted. And so we have to guard the gate again. Not once it's in the gate, not once it's happened, but guard it from ever entering until you are ready for this. And I know that many of you are carrying scars from relationships and the stories you've heard, from the pornography you've watched, whatever it is. I want to reassure you that Christ is a redeeming Savior. He doesn't take perfect people. He takes his bride and he cleanses her over and over and over again. And in Hosea, he tells them, like, marry a prostitute and you'll know how I have felt. And I know that some of us are so unclean, but there should be this bittersweet moment here where we see redemption. We see this is what we're supposed to aim for. This is what we're supposed to protect ourselves for. That it can be this beautiful time, and save as much of yourself as you can. And God takes, I think this was Ben Stewart again, where he takes the valleys of our deepest shame and turns them into a gateway of hope. For the rest of your marriage, even through the faults, the flaws, the challenges, there will be this beautiful picture of redeeming love, sacrificial love, where you will love the person no matter what they're going through, no matter what they've done. There's this running toward one another and giving yourself unreservedly to the other person. And that's what we get to. A garden locked is my sister, my bride. A spring locked, a fountain sealed. He's proud that she has kept herself pure. There's a sense of loss if this isn't the case for you, because it really is a loss. It's something that you will have to deal with and realize the reality of our sinful world. And some of you, this was done to you. And I pray that you are healed, that you can overcome, that you can move past what has happened to you. I've talked to some of those people. I've lived with some of those people. And there's nothing I can tell you that will restore you, that will make you feel pure, make you feel untouched, unhurt. But Christ is the closest you can ever get, because he works within the heart. No man can fill that void. No, nothing. Only Christ. And so that's why it's so important that this relationship is your foundation, because it will carry you through through the tough times, the tough memories, the painful experiences. But here I'll just, you guys can read it on your own, because I don't have time, but here she says, finally, she was warning, like, don't awaken. And she's awake, O north wind, and come, O south wind. Blow upon my garden, let its spices flow. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its choicest fruits. I'm not going to get into details. I think you guys get it. It's probably annoying, like how much time we spent. Forgive me, I don't know why we don't break this up more. But the last thing I'll say is open celebration. You don't want to wake up from that moment and have shame, guilt. You want to come out to the celebration where they will say, eat friends, drink and be drunk with love. You want to celebrate this moment, what has just taken place. And all throughout your marriage, not just this wedding night. And he speaks and he says, I came to my garden, my sister, my bride. I gathered my myrrh and my spice. I ate my honeycomb with my honey. I drank my wine with my milk. Gross. Wine with milk? I don't know. I've never tried it. But he's celebrating. He's almost thanking God for the blessing, the abundance, the honey and the milk. This is this reward. And he's expressing it. And then he goes out and he expresses it. You don't want to hide something like this from your parents. You don't want to hide it from God. You don't want to think about, oh, people are gossiping about what just took place. You don't want any of that. Anyway, I always have more to say, but here's where I'll end it. I don't know if the worship team has the guts to come out here, or if that's the plan. We can end it wherever you guys want. Cool. I will say this. Wherever you are in your journey, whether you're single or you've had relationships and they didn't work out or any of it, there's always something to look forward to. Always. And God isn't the enemy of your love life, the enemy of your relationships. He just wants you to be in safe parameters so that you can enjoy lasting relationships.